Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. New data show the poverty rate for 2023 has declined, but over 17 million Filipinos remain impoverished. We're going to take a closer look at how the government calculates the poverty threshold.
And two top officials of Smartmatic have surrendered in the United States to face a string of charges related to the Philippine elections back in 2016.
And Golden Boy Carlos Yulo swung by Signal TV headquarters in Mandaluyong today and got a warm welcome from employees, fans, and the Dabarkads.
Kicking off tonight with some economic news, the Philippine poverty rate for 2023, which was released today, saw a drop compared to 2 years ago amid higher incomes. That's according to the Philippine Statistics Authority.
Still, it does not change the fact that tens of millions live below the poverty line, the monthly threshold for which is being pegged at 13,873 pesos per family of 5.
Now, one other figure being contested is 64 pesos, which is the amount Filipinos need to spend per family member per day to not be considered food poor, at least according to the government. JC Cosico has the big story tonight.
New data out today showed the Philippines' poverty rate in 2023 dropped to 15.5% from 18.1% in 2021. That's still equivalent to 17.5 million Filipinos living below the poverty line, a decrease of 2.4 million from the 2021 survey. The Philippine Statistics Authority said the decline in poverty rate last year could be traced to higher incomes.
Yung ating income was faster than the food inflation. Tumaas ng mas mabilis yung ating kita, no? Yung kita ng mga pamilya, karamihan, wages and salaries.
Still, life remains hard for the millions of Filipinos who are stuck in poverty. These are the families earning below 13,873 pesos a month. This is the threshold amount calculated by the government, which it says is what families need in order to sustain basic needs like food, shelter, health, utilities, and clothing. Some 740,000 families, or 4.84 million Filipinos, are also considered food poor. For a family of 5 to be considered food poor, they should have less than 9,581 pesos in their monthly food budget. Broken down, that's 64 pesos per day per family member. And this is now the subject of heated debate, with many questioning how the government was able to come up with that number.
Gamitin niya yung 64 pesos, pumunta siya sa palengke, wag siyang magkotse kasi mas mahal yung gasolina. Tingnan natin kung ano yung mabibili nung 64 pesos na binabanggit niya. Kasabay niyan, kung meron man 64 pesos, anong sustansya ang mabibili nung 64 pesos na budget niya para sa isang tao?
The PSA said they based this on food bundles and the corresponding nutritional content in consultation with experts. The sample menu includes rice and scrambled egg, vegetables like malunggay and kangkong, and bread for snacks.
Ito yung parang pinaka basic least cost. Hindi pwede na bibilin yung pagkain sa karinderya. Kasi pag binili mo yung pagkain sa karinderya, may services component yun eh. So hindi siya least cost. So kailangan niluluto.
This is not the first time that economic officials face backlash for issuing data concerning cost of living and day-to-day budget. That's why the PSA said it's working on adjusting its data gathering processes to better reflect realities on the ground.
Magsisimula tayo doon sa menu, no? Meron kami ngayon mga several menus na pinipili. So we know that the consumption pattern of families, all families in the country, much more yung mga nasa bottom, change also.
So we want also to be reflective dun sa current situation. So that's why we are constantly addressing and reviewing our methodology.
For its part, NEDA also admits they have to review the threshold for determining which Filipinos are considered poor.
Hindi porke bumili ka ng itlog, wala ka ng ibang gagastusin. No? Kailangan mo ng gas, kailangan mo ng mantika, kailangan mo ng asin, kailangan pang mamasahe papunta sa palengke. Maraming mga gastos bago mo mabili yung mga pangunahing basic na pagkain na nakalista dyan. At hindi naman pwede araw-araw ganyan.
For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
64 pesos per day and roughly translating to about 21 pesos per meal. Those are the big numbers tonight that everyone is talking about. The question now is whether it reflects reality. Are you really not considered poor if you have 64 pesos to spare for 3 meals in a day? This food poverty threshold has actually gone up over the past years. Back in 2018, it was barely 50 pesos per day, meaning if you had more than that, you wouldn't have been considered food poor. NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan had this to say about their metrics.
Our purpose in setting that standard from the very start, say we started this about 2010 or 2012, around that time. Our purpose was to measure the changes in poverty over time without changing your standard. So pare-parehong standard. Of course, kung may inflation, we adjust for the inflation. But otherwise, the basket of goods and services constant throughout the time. So ang nangyari, because we wanted to find out whether the programs, the strategies, the policies are making a dent on poverty.
Senators who heard the figures from NEDA officials themselves at a hearing yesterday are not too happy about this threshold.
Hindi naman siguro makatotohanan yan sa pagkain pa lamang. Hindi pa kabilang ang transportasyon, ang iba't ibang pangangailangan sa edukasyon at iba pa sa pabahay. Kaya siguro we have to be more realistic and adjust these prices. Pumunta lang kayo sa palengke, tignan nyo yung pagkain. Yung presyo per kilo, 91.22 pesos. Anong mabibili mo? Pagkain pa lang yun, wala pa yung pamasahe, wala pa yung pabahay, yung utilities mo, edukasyon ng bata, gamot, damit. So I know it's been very meticulously calculated. Yeah. But what about the realistic amount?
Well, you know, every year when this report comes out from the Statistics Authority, people always react pretty much in the same
Of course,
manner.
it's a gut issue, right? It hits everyone in the gut, right? The question is always, should this be the threshold? And as NEDA Secretary Balisacan explained, that figure is meticulously calculated. I also just received a response from NEDA about this food poverty threshold issue. It's a long statement, but the essential lines, and I'm going to quote because I don't want to misquote him, says, food threshold represents cost of a food bundle that meets the energy and micronutrient needs of the average Filipino. They are not and were never intended to be prescribed budgets for a decent standard of living. They do not dictate how much a family should spend on food, nor do they provide an idea of a desirable household budget. I guess that's the most important line there. It's a threshold, yes, and it's a line in the sand, but it's not intended to prescribe budgets. It doesn't mean, it's just a way to calculate, okay, how are we going in terms of poverty rate? How is inflation eating into the average household's budget? But of course, we all know that poverty remains a huge problem in this country, but it's not intended to be a prescribed budget for any household.
So, like I was saying earlier, you know, through the years, every time this report comes out, people really react. Back in 2018,
I remember this issue.
Our Socioeconomic Secretary, Ernie Pernia, was slammed online for saying that he made a comment about the 10,000 peso a month family budget, which later on he did actually have to go out and clarify that a family of 5 needs 42,000 pesos a month to survive.
Right.
So it's a big difference from that prescribed amount. But like the NEDA said, it is not a
daily food poverty threshold. We're looking at the numbers now. It has increased in accordance with the corresponding inflation. Inflation, we know, is still quite high at the moment, and this is approved by FNRI as well. Again, this is based off a sample food bundle, sample menu that was presented to them that takes into account the energy and micronutrient requirements of the average Filipino. It's not meant to be a prescribed budget for a decent standard of living. They're not saying that this is a decent standard of living. It's just a line in the sand that they had to draw to calculate what the poverty rate is.
After all, they are in the business of statistics.
Right.
And
But
so
on
they
the
have to
other
draw lines in the
other
sand.
hand, you can't fault people as well for feeling
reacting
this way, because as we said, it's a gut issue, which is, you know, to this day still the number one electoral issue. Survey after survey confirms that. So okay, moving on to health news now. The World Health Organization has declared Mpox a global public emergency, health emergency for the second time in 2 years following a surge of cases in Africa. So should the Philippines start worrying about this outbreak? Maricel Halili has that story.
Cases of Mpox or monkeypox have increased dramatically in Africa, particularly in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. According to the latest report from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this is a 160% increase compared to last year. Over 500 have died, and the virus is rapidly spreading to other countries in Africa. As such, the World Health Organization has declared Mpox as a public health emergency of international concern. This is the highest alert level globally. This is the second time the WHO declared Mpox a public health emergency of international concern, the last time being in July 2022. That was for a different strain, which the WHO says was milder.
The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying.
Because of this, more funds will be allocated to prevent the virus from spreading beyond the African continent. Mpox is a contagious disease caused by a monkeypox virus. Symptoms include fever and rashes. It can worsen if left undisinfected, especially when the rashes become pus-filled. Despite the WHO's declaration, the country's health department says Filipinos have no reason to be alarmed. DOH Assistant Secretary Albert Dominguez stated that there are currently no active cases in the country. There were 9 recorded cases in the past, but the last one was in December 2023. All of those cases have recovered.
Ang lagi namin sinasabi sa public health, kailangan po alerto tayo, no? Yung parang kanina, tamang praning lang, wag masyado. Bakit? Kasi kailangan alam rin natin kung anong gagawin natin para hindi tayo mahawaan, para tayo ay makaingat.
To ensure the virus does not enter the Philippines, border controls will be more vigilant. However, the Bureau of Quarantine will not add any extra processes at this time. Currently, there is no medication or vaccine for Mpox, but it is said to be self-resolved. Some studies suggest that the smallpox vaccine is effective against Mpox. In the meantime, the DOH has since advised wearing of face masks and regular hand washing to prevent getting infected by any virus. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Now in other news, the International Criminal Court's warrant of arrest for former President Rodrigo Duterte could be out next month. That's what former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio told geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian recently. While Carpio did not say who his source was, he said he thinks walls are closing in on Duterte and some of the issues hounding him: congressional investigations on the war on drugs, pogos, illegal gambling, and other activities the former president's allies are supposedly involved in.
I think the day of reckoning is coming closer because what I'm hearing is that a warrant of arrest will be issued by the ICC sometime in September.
But for ICC Assistant Prosecutor Attorney Cristina Conti, there is still that element of surprise. She told our sister program, Storycon, that it's very possible Duterte could be arrested without any announcement from either the ICC or the Interpol acting on the court's behalf.
In some instances, in African situations, may gano'n na lang, na sinabi na lang na in custody na, nasa Hague na yung akusado. And it's effective in the sense that they can proceed with trial. Hindi na yung may announcement, etc. Tapos hindi natuloy.
Moving on now to the United States, where two top executives of Smartmatic have surrendered after their indictment for money laundering and bribery related to the 2016 Philippine elections. Smartmatic founder Roger Piñate and former Smartmatic Vice President for Hardware Development Jorge Miguel Vasquez turned themselves in to face charges before a Miami federal court. They were later released on bond, $8.5 million for Piñate and $1 million for Vasquez. Both are slapped with one count of conspiracy to violate the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act when they allegedly bribed then COMELEC chairman Andy Bautista with at least $1 million. That payoff was supposedly done by the election technology provider to secure the contract to supply the Philippine polls 8 years ago. Bautista, Piñate, Vasquez, and former Smartmatic Philippines General Manager Eli Moreno are also facing money laundering charges. But there is no word yet if Bautista will follow suit and likewise surrender.
For the first time since 2019, a Singaporean head of state is in Manila for an official visit. Singaporean President Tharman Shanmugaratnam arrived in Malacanang this afternoon for a bilateral meeting with President Marcos as part of a 3-day visit. He and his spouse, Jane Itogi Shanmugaratnam, were accorded arrival honors and greeted by First Lady Liza Marcos and other cabinet officials. Prior to arriving at the Malacanang Palace, the Singaporean president attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the Rizal Monument in Rizal Park. This is Shanmugaratnam's first visit to the Philippines as head of state and comes as the two countries mark 55 years of diplomatic ties. During the bilateral, the two leaders are expected to reaffirm cooperation in both bilateral and multilateral arenas, particularly in energy and healthcare. They're also expected to sign MOUs on the recruitment of Filipino healthcare workers, as well as collaborate on climate financing. Shanmugaratnam also praised Filipino athletes following their success at Paris 2024, saying, well, there's a bit of reflected glory for ASEAN.
There was just something very impressive about the performance of Filipino athletes at the Olympic Games.
Thank you.
Mr. Yulo's 2 goals is the only athlete from Southeast Asia, from an ASEAN nation, who's had 2 Olympic goals ever in any sport. Yeah. So it's a real milestone. It's a real milestone for all of us. I mean, we share in a bit of the reflected glory of, of the Philippines.
Look at that, finally something to get ASEAN to come together. Sports always brings people together. I love it.
That's right. Well, for now, we'll be taking a brief pause, but up next, we'll be speaking to Trade Undersecretary Mary Jean Pacheco about the new law that promises to boost the digital economy and consumer confidence in e-commerce. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You're watching The Big Story here on One News. All right. Have you ever been asked, or rather, have you been asked to re-register your details and verify your identity on shopping platforms lately online? Well, it's not because the app keeps losing your details, as I originally thought, but it's because the Internet Transactions Act of 2023, which was signed into law 8 months ago, is now slowly coming into force. So, Republic Act 11967, which was one of President Marcos's priority bills, covers all manners of digital platforms, whether it be e-marketplaces, mobile apps, social media, or travel platforms. Also covered are online merchants, whether you're selling directly to consumers or through third-party platforms. The ITA's overarching goal is to make the internet a safer place for e-commerce for both consumers and businesses. To that end, the DTI has set up the ECommerce Bureau, which is tasked with working with other government agencies to address cross-cutting issues such as digital payments, data privacy, complaints and dispute resolutions, intellectual property and taxation, among others. The Bureau will also be in charge of formulating policies and monitoring compliance with this new law. Still a lot of questions around this new law, so let me bring in the lead person for this ECommerce Bureau we have with us tonight, DTI Undersecretary Mary Jean Pacheco. USEC, thank you so much for coming all the way here to speak to us about this.
Thank you, Regina. Nice to see you here again, but this time in your home. We met in
a forum.
Yeah, thank you for moderating that session.
Talking about fintech, enabling fintech. So ITA, you're here to talk about ITA, and I had a look at it. It's a huge remit. I was just reading the introduction, right? It covers e-marketplaces, all manners of digital transactions. Yes. And you're the lead for the ECommerce Bureau. Tell us, give us a bird's eye view of what you're trying to do here.
So the law, as you reported earlier on, the law was signed by the President last December. It's a fairly new law, but this is a landmark law because it covers all internet transactions. So it's simply, if you buy and sell online, this is the law that provides a regulatory framework to help, the main goal is really to build trust on e-commerce. And I always say, in DTI, we promote micro, small, medium enterprises. So we want more businesses to sell online because really the potential of e-commerce is huge. In the same manner as when you sell online, we are also in the business of protecting consumers. Since most of us here, before the show, I ask all of us here are online consumers.
We are fans of online shopping. But let me ask you this, Yusek. You said this is to build trust, and trust is a two-way thing. So you said to protect consumers, but I assume it's also to protect sellers. So it goes all ways and every way.
That's correct. So it is. The long title really reads both merchant protection and consumer protection, creating for this purpose the ECommerce Bureau. So the law provides very clearly the requirements, the compliance requirements. If you are a merchant and you sell, that is very clear in the law. And also, it is also very clear in the law that if you are a consumer, you also have obligations. One of the things that I'd like to always explain, that in this particular law, it provides clarity on the type of e-commerce enterprises. Usually, when you say e-commerce, especially when I started, people will always say that, e-commerce is like Lazada, Shopee.
But it's more than that.
Yes, but it's really more than that. When you say e-commerce, there's an ecosystem built around it. If you are a consumer, you have a merchant, and then you look at the product, you go through a platform. The platform connects the merchant and the seller. When you want the product, you pay for it, and of course, it's delivered to you. So that is, in effect, the ecosystem. And that's been considered here. And what are the enterprises? We all know about the digital platforms. The digital platforms are the ones that connect. So you know them as Shopee, Lazada, Facebook, TikTok Shop, Amazon, and all of that. So those are the digital platforms. If you are an e-retailer, you have a brick and mortar, or you have a website. You have your own. You are called an e-retailer.
Okay.
You have a presence, and then we also, the law identifies online merchants. And who are those? You see this, when you go to a digital platform, there are merchants on board Shopee, there are merchants on board Lazada. So all of these three types of businesses are the business models. They're very much covered in the law, and the obligations of this particular types of businesses are also clear under the law.
You actually have a code of conduct,
Yeah, that's
which is so
correct.
funny. Let's show
that's
it.
Correct.
We extracted some of these guidelines that you put out.
Treat consumers with honesty, integrity, and fairness at all times.
Yeah.
Okay,
so you're reading there are two kinds of code of conduct. We have a code of conduct for businesses,
that's right,
as we do have a code of conduct for online consumers. So that's the beauty of it. That's why building trust. So there, when you sell, and perhaps this is the best time to really tell the public, especially those who intend to sell or are selling, do not sell regulated if you're not. Do you have a permit? Do not sell fake products. If you, of course, prohibited products are not allowed. So remember that when you do sell a product online, the rules are the same. If it's not allowed offline, it's not allowed online. So there should be an equal treatment for online and offline businesses. There are certain rules. For example, standards to follow. For example, my favorite, of course, is a DTI product, the helmets. Yeah. When you sell a helmet, or even when you buy a helmet, you make sure there's a sticker there.
Yeah, there has to be a sticker.
Yes, because
like firecrackers. You guys are very strict. And Christmas lights.
That's right.
Yeah.
So all of those are covered by mandatory standards. So if you
do you mean motorcycle helmets?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes. You need
that.
you need to have a sticker.
It's like a quality assurance kind of sticker that they have to have been licensed and approved by the DTI.
By the DTI. So we, as of last count with the Bureau of Philippine Standards, there are about 111 products that are covered by standards. But of course, we also say that under this law, it is, while DTI has regulatory jurisdiction, it is also very clear in the law that we have to collaborate and coordinate with other agencies of government. My favorite example, when we were in COVID, that's when e-commerce really boomed, right?
Is it taxation? Are you going to say taxation?
No, it's going to be. No, it's about collaborating with other agencies of government. When we were all stuck in lockdown, many of us became plantitas.
Right.
Right. And we would all our attention was called by they wanted to seek our help with the platforms because the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority said there are many sellers of fertilizers in the marketplace, and you can't do that.
You can't sell fertilizer
No,
online.
you need to have a license to sell fertilizer.
Oh, okay.
And if
They're controlled substances.
That's correct.
Right?
You have to be very careful about the fertilizers we buy. Any of us, this thingy, right? Sometimes they buy in bulk, and then you buy it in small.
Repack. They call it repack.
So this new law empowers you to do what? In that example, you can shut it down.
Yes.
You can penalize the seller.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's very good because now it's clear, unlike again in the past. We do have some laws in the past, but this one is explicit.
Okay, let me follow up with that example. So you penalize the seller. What happens to the platform, the shopping platform?
So earlier on, we did mention that the law explains the different kinds of business models. So we are telling everybody that you have to have the responsibility. If, for example, the online merchant sits on a platform, let's begin with the primary liability. The one who sells the product is the liable person. So in this case, you have a merchant that sells on a platform. That merchant is the one that's responsible for if there is a violation. And what we're telling to everybody is, merchant, please make sure that you follow the rules. When you are selling fertilizer, you have to know that fertilizer, you need a license for that.
But what if they say, oh, but I didn't know I'm not allowed to sell fertilizer because, the online store, the platform, right? So it's either Shopee or Lazada, they didn't say that it's not allowed.
Okay.
So how does that work?
So again, this is the beauty of the show, because now we're telling everybody, when you sell online, it's your responsibility to make sure that you know you're following the rules. However, let me go with that example. So there's a complaint, or we catch them on our own. We find out that it's either a fake product or it's illegal, it's irregular, there's no issuance. And then we call the attention of the platform. We tell the platform, DTI, the Secretary of the Department of Trade now has this power. They will say, this product is fake. You're not supposed to sell this product. Take it out. They should follow us. So the platform has the obligation to take that out. And if they don't, then they are equally liable.
So, Yusek, will you be actively going after those illegal sellers, or will you be waiting for reports from consumers? And how serious are the penalties for?
Or are you using AI to kind of catch them?
Because otherwise you'd be working 24 hours a day.
And still, it wouldn't be enough.
It will never be enough.
So, of course, the first thing and the most practical thing is to work with the platforms. So the advocacy of it all, we are telling them that's your first line of defense. We're telling the platforms, don't accept merchants if they're not supposed to sell. So they have a responsibility to check whether or not the merchants are following the rules. So that's the first line of defense. So that's why we are the law is giving them 18 months. 18 months to check on the merchants, to inform their merchants that, hey, look, these are the rules, these are the regulations. You have to make sure we have a list, and the list is non-exhaustive. It's still a list that we're expanding, but the list is quite clear. Those that you can sell, those that you cannot sell. So that should be enough time for them to tell the merchants to clean it up. And if the merchants do not have the necessary licenses, the merchants would either A, not sell it, or B, get a license. So we have 18 months. They have 18 months to really clean up the database.
Has the clock started? Has the clock started?
Yes, the clock has started. And the clock will end on June 2024. Next year. And
2025.
2025, I'm sorry, 2025. And we had a meeting with them. We said to them, just to let you know that the clock has started, and don't expect any extension. That will be next year. By 2025, it's all going to be full court press. We just have to move, because this is urgent.
So kumbaga ito yung soft opening, yung trial launch, and you're giving people time to kind of adapt and familiarize themselves.
That's right, because it does take technology. The platforms operate on AI, on technology, so they have to make sure that when the merchants come in, all the necessary information that the law has provided is very clear. The law says each merchant should make sure that they should provide the name, the contact person, the address, and then the license, the condition. Everything should be made available to the public.
The law also empowers you to put companies on a blacklist.
That's correct.
How many times how many offenses does it take to land on that blacklist?
Yes. I have to do another guesting perhaps on this show. This issuances, we are still working on many issuances, because this would really require some standard operational procedures. Please, we are working on it.
Okay, so there's
nothing yet, but yes.
Okay. Let me bring it back to this. So I'm going to use an example because it's the easiest way to understand. So I used to try to buy medicine online, and it used to be not a problem. I know now that it's wrong, but before I didn't, because it was available. So I was part of that example I gave you earlier. So now I've even seen sites where they require, it's like legit, like one of the brick and mortar drugstores, big name, they actually ask for receta.
Prescription.
On like one of the shopping app platforms like Shopee, I think, or Lazada. So is this a result of this law, the ITA coming to pass?
Yes. But before that, this would be a good time to also say that, in fact, there is a pending bill in Congress for an even more specific law, which is an e-botica bill. So that would probably be more a straightforward answer to your question.
That's very specific and very niche.
That's very, very niche. But as we all say, this in effect already is part of it. While there will be a specific law, assuming that the bill becomes a law, then that's very specific about the requirements if you were to sell like a pharmacy online. But now, the way it is now, yes, it is really covered under the law, under the Internet Transactions Act. And this is where I was mentioning earlier on that it is really not just DTI. It really is a work with other agencies of government. So in this particular case, it's with the Food and Drug Administration. So that is the partner that we have with FDA. And when the team has been really counting, because we have expanded. I think we have about 30 agencies of government that we need to collaborate with, because there are many things that you buy online. And there are many things that are covered by different agencies of government. So we have to work with each one of them and make sure that that's why there will be another set of issuances, because it's really about standards. There's a section in the Internet Transactions Act that provides that the ECommerce Bureau will now should track consumer complaints.
So right now, ito pa lang yung backbone
Yes.
ng magiging future set of laws that will be more
That's correct.
specific.
Let me give you another example. On Facebook, for instance, let's jump out of the marketplace, e-shopping apps and marketplace. Facebook, social media platform, right? But a lot of people get scammed on Facebook in private selling groups, for instance. What is the liability there for the tech platform?
So again, it is covered by the Internet Transactions Act, and that's why again with Facebook, Meta, we are of course in talks, because I know they are also preparing for this law. So we're very happy that the digital platforms, whether these are the e-marketplaces or the social media platforms, they know that the law has been passed and that they have their own changes in the way they do things. And that's something that we again have to wait on what kind of changes. But yes, they should be, as we said with all of our issuances and our public engagements, right? That they have to abide with the conditions that we said in the law. What is that? Provide information, because you mentioned Facebook, and you know that there are many complaints that people go, and that's the thing, and we cannot hide the fact that sometimes there are sellers in Facebook. It's very easy, and then maybe they already a lot of scams, and then all of a sudden they disappear. And that's what happens by DTI. And this is, to be honest, really because of the complaints and the consumer complaints. We in DTI try to run after them because they're complaints, but we don't find them. They're already gone. They're gone.
They're disappeared. Because it's so easy to just set up a new account.
That's right. So now that would be a little difficult because the platforms are now legally, we're telling them, before you take someone in, you have to make sure that they provide you with the necessary information. Where they're from.
Live selling, is that included also?
Okay.
It's going to become more popular
That's
nowadays.
correct. So thank you for that, because what is not, I have to clarify first of all that the law covers B2B, B2C, except C2C, consumer to consumer. Okay. Also not covered is content, right? Online media content. So we're not like the MTRCB, right? So, but what are covered? The answer is live selling, yes, because that is considered advertising, right? So we have to be very careful, because if a live seller sells a product, we have to make sure that that product is legitimate, that product is not deceptive. So that is covered really, there's a Consumer Act. So again, watch out for some rules on that, because we've been getting a lot of questions on that.
Exactly.
Yes. More
live selling is the new thing.
So
for content. Right, but for content, like if you make content and you try to sell things via your content,
you're an influencer.
So again, online media content is not up to the DTI, right? A better way is, for example, a movie or maybe, like for example, like Netflix, right? If there's a movie there that it's not for kids, and we don't have anything to do with that. We cannot really say that that's not allowed. That we're not the MTRCB, so we're not regulating content. But what we are regulating is the act of selling. So if you have a problem with a subscription, then that falls under buying and selling online.
So you said, you also mentioned B2B. So
Yes.
it covers merchant to merchant.
That's correct.
Transactions as
That's
well.
correct.
So for instance, right, so also for example, I have a small resort and we're currently in a dispute with Agoda, that would fall under the new law.
Yeah. So of course this is a service example, but maybe I do have a more practical example, because we do have a Consumer Act. In Consumer Act, it's very clear that it's really about individual or natural entities. In the Internet Transactions Act, it is both natural and juridical. So if you are a dentist, and you bought a air conditioning for your dental clinic, right? So, but if you are, for example, a dentist and you really bought it really for your house, then that's really a Consumer Act. So in the case of the Internet Transactions Act, whether or not you buy it personally or you put it, you use it for business, but you buy it online, everything is buying online, then you are definitely covered by the Internet Transactions Act.
Wow, that again, I repeat, that is a huge remit. You're going to need an army of people to sift through everything.
Yes.
The most advanced technology.
Yes,
that's correct.
And to work with the platforms.
That's right. That's why the e-commerce, the Internet Transactions Act provides for internet tools, IT tools. And again, another maybe time, if we can hopefully be invited again.
We'll
sure
definitely
this
talk
is a
about it. As
developing
you
story.
said, the clock is ticking for the platforms to start complying with the new law. We'll check back in with you guys in a couple of months' time. But for now, we're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for joining us and explaining all about the Internet Transactions Act, DTI Undersecretary Mary Jean Pacheco. To sports now, and it was an eventful day inside the Signal headquarters in Mandaluyong as we welcomed our golden boy Carlos Yulo. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho covered the whole thing, and she has the lowdown.
Preparations for the big welcome for our two-time Olympic gold medalist Carlos Yulo started early this morning. Though Kaloy was expected to arrive at around 10:30 a.m., employees, building tenants, and even passersby started gathering an hour before. And when he finally arrived, it was an opportunity for fans to see Kaloy up close and, of course, take a photo and score an autograph. After the photo ops downstairs, Kaloy then headed up to the Signal offices where more employees were waiting for him. Kaloy was also welcomed by Signal executives. Kaloy also made a quick visit to Eat Bulaga for their segment, Dear Eat Bulaga. There, he surprised a young girl, which immediately put her to tears. The Golden Boy's lucky chalk box even made an appearance, which he shared with a young gymnast, a core memory that she for sure won't forget.
Grabe po, hindi lang po sa Dabber Cuts, hindi lang po dito, grabe po yung pagbaba pa lang sa airport. Grabe, sobrang daming mga tao talaga na-reach ko, na-inspire ko sila. Sobrang grateful and sobrang blessed, honored na na-represent ako yung Pilipinas. At syempre, sobrang thankful talaga kay Lord na binigyan niya akong ganitong talento na makita ng buong mundo at maka-inspira ng mga bata po. Sobrang salamat sa mga nagdasal sa akin, sa amin, na mga atletang Pilipino po.
Right after, selected media were given the chance to ask questions to the Golden Boy. Yulo shared everything from his trainings to Tokyo 2020 and Paris 2024 Olympic journey. After winning the double gold, Yulo admitted that the support and incentives he's received was nothing like he imagined.
Sa Tokyo Olympics po, well, ano din po kasi COVID po.
Pandemic pa,
yes po. wala pong ganong experience. Sobrang parang Manny Pacquiao experience ko na-experience ko this time.
With the spotlight on him, Kaloy had this message for aspiring athletes in the country.
Yeah, tuloy-tuloy po natin kung ano yung pangarap natin sa buhay. Okay lang madapa ng madapa kasi doon tayo natututo po talaga. And wala pong pagkatalo talaga sa mga experience sa buhay. Puro learnings po yung nakukuha natin and na-experience natin.
Mobile journalist Denise Valdez-Sancho, we are One News.
Okay, first off, we have to apologize that we did say in our headlines at the start of the show that we would have Carlos Yulo over Zoom. Unfortunately, he has been doing media rounds since before he even left Paris to come back home to the Philippines. And so he is unable to join us tonight, but the Kaloy fever is definitely not over yet. Here is instead a sneak peek at One News's The Long Take with two-time Olympic gold medalist Carlos Yulo.
At isa doon sa nag-viral at nakita namin yung post mo ay yung talagang hinintay ka, pinaghandaan ka ng tatay mo. And talagang maraming naantig doon sa post mo na pasensya na pa. Hindi ako, marami nagpapa-autograph.
Yeah.
Did you see him in the crowd?
Nung medyo nakalagpas na po kami nung nakita ko yung papa ko. Pero medyo expected ko na po na makikita ko siya.
Mm-hmm.
Kasi malapit po yung working place niya po dun. So, like, parang hindi ko na po masyado po bang napansin po.
Ayan, I'll show it to you. Kasi talagang makikita mo siya.
Yeah, buhat-buhat po siya.
Yung buhat-buhat siya nung siya. So, namukaan mo siya.
Yes po, especially sa sombrero po palagi niya po yun.
Alam mo na.
Yes po.
So, anong pakiramdam?
Sobrang saya po. Sarap sa feeling na yung suporta ng tatay ko. Binigay niya sa akin. And papasalamat sa Diyos na may ganong taong sumusuporta sa akin po talaga. Naniwala po. Yeah.
Oo, mararamdaman mo talaga, no? Yung, nag-usap na ba kayo or soon? No?
Yes, soon po, soon. Yeah.
Okay, balikan
na. Kasi sobrang busy.
All right, there's a lot more where that came from, so do catch the rest of that interview right here on One News at 9 p.m. tomorrow. That is August 16, right after the big story.
And before we go, well, next weekend will be a long one. Why? President Bongbong Marcos has ordered the non-working holiday observance of Ninoy Aquino Day from Wednesday, August 21st to Friday, August 23rd. In proclamation number 665, Marcos said the move was for a longer weekend that would promote domestic tourism. Moving the non-working day to mark the martyrdom of former Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. from August 21 Wednesday to August 23 Friday now gives the public a 4-day weekend. Now, the last Monday of August, which falls on August 26, is marked as a regular holiday in commemoration of National Heroes Day. The Labor Department has been instructed to issue the appropriate circular to implement the proclamation for the private sector.
Remember when people were worried that he was going to abolish Ninoy Aquino Day?
It was a long weekend.
No, he gave us a really long weekend.
No, I know, but I'm just like,
Yeah,
not too long ago on the campaign trail even, people were worried that if another Marcos comes to power, that's it for Ninoy Aquino Day. But here we are.
But actually, it's more of it's the EDSA Day that kind of got, well, not really abolished, but it's not that much of a holiday anymore.
They were worried that he was not going to commemorate it anymore. That's true. That's EDSA Day also came up. That's right.
That's in February, though. But for tonight, so I guess the good news is really long weekend.
Long weekend.
So we like to end the show on a good note. That's it for the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.